Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a struggle that is, well, pretty much universal, the struggle of performance.
Hmm.
And it really doesn't matter what your field is.
Yeah.
You could be a batter waiting for a 90-mile-an-hour delivery or, a CEO about to give the biggest presentation of your career.
The challenge is exactly the same.
Exactly. It's that core question. What is it that prevents you from bringing the absolute best version of yourself to that one critical moment?
It's the question that really defines high-level careers, isn't it? We're talking about that really frustrating gap between what you know you can do and what you actually do.
Between competence and execution.
Precisely. You know you have the skills, you've put in the work, but when the pressure is really on, something just gets in the way
Yeah.
and intercepts that ability.
So our mission for this deep dive is it's laser focused. We want to tackle the two critical questions that seem to plague even the highest performers out there.
Right? First, what really gets in the way of your best performance? And second, and maybe more importantly, how do you unlock that best version of yourself consistently, not just on the good days?
And the sources we've gone through, interviews, performance psychology studies, reflections from elite athletes, they all seem to boil the answers down to a single, really tightly woven pair: confidence and focus.
Yeah, that's the duo.
Yeah.
When you ask top professionals why they fall short, the list is almost always the same.
It's predictable, isn't it? Self-doubt comes up.
Every time. Fear of failure.
A lack of consistent confidence. And then the big one, just being distracted or not being able to focus when the stakes are highest.
But, naming those blockers is really just step one. It's the easy part.
Mm-hmm.
It immediately pushes us into the much more complex tactical questions,
Yeah.
the questions you actually need answers to.
It's one thing to say, I need more confidence.
It's trivial. The real challenge is in the mechanics of it. How do I stay confident when the results have just been awful for weeks on end?
Right. Or how can I focus more effectively when I feel all this pressure, internal and external, just building up to this unbearable point?
And maybe the most practical question of all, if I feel my focus slipping mid-pitch, mid-meeting, whatever it is, what's the immediate concrete thing I can do to pull my attention back to the task at hand?
These are the actionable levers. That's what we have to get into today.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start by really unpacking the problem. The sources call it the confidence roller coaster, which feels very appropriate. The personal accounts we looked at make it crystal clear that for so many high performers, the reason their careers just kind of ebbed and flowed was rooted in one single idea.
Mm-hmm. They admitted it themselves.
They admitted it. They said, I was only as good as my last few results.
And that phrase right there, that's a huge red flag. It's a sign of a really fragile psychological state. It's basically the definition of what the research calls circumstantial confidence.
So let's break that cycle down. When results are amazing, you're landing the big deals, you're scoring runs, your confidence just goes sky high.
You're riding this massive wave of positive outcomes. One person in the source material described the feeling as being absolutely bulletproof.
And what's so fascinating, I think this is something you really need to absorb, is that this feeling doesn't stay in its box.
No, it bleeds into everything.
This circumstantial confidence, this feeling of being invincible that you get from your work, it just flows straight into every other part of your life.
Yeah, you find yourself approaching, family issues or even just planning a holiday with that same sense of competence. You feel bolder.
More decisive, less worried about everything.
Which is, of course, highly reinforcing. It feels great.
Yeah.
And when you're operating from that place of high confidence, little setbacks don't even register.
Right. A small deal falls through, a presentation has a technical glitch, or in the cricket example, you miss out in a couple of games. It just doesn't feel like a threat to who you are.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
You go into the next big challenge with no fear because your expectation of success is so high that you just write off those little failures as, like, statistical noise.
A blip. Easily corrected next time.
Yeah.
But this is where it gets really, really interesting when you flip that equation. Because inevitably, in any high-stakes field, you will.
The wave always crashes.
It does. And as soon as the results turn bad, the entire psychological house of cards just collapses.
And we're not talking about one bad day. We're talking about a sustained period where things just aren't going your way.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the negative feedback loop starts to really dig in.
You start to internalize it, don't you? You take the issues to heart. And that doubt, it starts in your professional life, but then it bleeds out into everything else.
It's the complete inverse of that bulletproof feeling. The source material used a really specific cricketing example.
Yeah.
When confidence drops, the athlete stops thinking about hitting the ball. and starts worrying about the consequences of failing.
They start worrying about being dropped from the team.
Right. And then their mind just spirals. What happens if I get dropped? What does my life look like then? The present moment, the task right in front of them, it just vanishes.
It's replaced by this existential dread about their whole career.
And that observation is so crucial. So many high-level professionals, because they define themselves entirely by their numbers, their scores, their sales figures, they allow a handful of recent results to dictate their entire psychological state for the day.
And that right there is the definition of the performance trap. Tying your self-worth, your very competence, to something that is fundamentally volatile.
And it's so destructive because of how it connects to our second core idea here, focus. When we're on that high, when we're riding the wave of results-based confidence, our focus is described as, sharp, deep, unwavering. We're completely in the zone.
Caught into the process.
But the second that confidence gets shaken, the mind just loses its anchor. Attention gets pulled all over the place by internal noise.
And that's when the infamous mind chatter starts.
Yeah, those negative thoughts that were quiet before, suddenly they have a megaphone. And the fear of failure doesn't just show up, it stages a hostile takeover of your brain.
And that shift in your attention is just devastating to your performance. It doesn't matter what you do.
The key insight from the sources is simple, but it is so profound.
Yeah.
It's this: when doubt or fear takes over, your focus instantly shifts away from what you are doing.
The grip on the bat, the line of code you're writing, the tone of your voice.
All of that disappears, and your focus shifts entirely to the consequences of what you're doing.
And your performance just tanks, inevitably.
Of course. If you're a salesperson, you're worried about the consequence of losing the quarter's biggest client. Your brain has no bandwidth left to actually listen to what the client is saying right now.
Or a surgeon. If you're worried about a potential complication, that worry is siphoning away the very mental energy you need for the precise, automatic movements of the job.
Your energy shifts from executing in the present to trying to avoid a disaster in an imagined future. And that is the absolute core of what we call choking.
You're trying so hard not to fail that you completely forget how to succeed.
That's it, perfectly.
So, okay, we've established confidence is absolutely essential for top performance.
Non-negotiable.
We also know that circumstantial confidence, the kind built only on your recent results, is unstable. It's prone to, well, catastrophic failure.
Right, so that brings us to the fundamental question. Are we building our confidence on the right foundation?
Because the one thing we know about performance, whether it's cricket or finance or art, is that it's defined by relentless change, variance.
Outcomes go up and down constantly. Yeah. The margins between what we call a success and what we call a failure are, they're microscopic.
This is the statistical flaw, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have this belief, this sort of perfectionist idea that the best performers, the truly great ones, must succeed almost all the time.
And that belief is not just wrong, it's psychologically damaging. To maintain confidence based on results, you need constant success. But the reality of any competitive environment is defined by difficulty and, frankly, randomness.
To really drive this home, let's look at the absolute legends. Because this is the data that should just completely dismantle any belief you have left in results-based confidence.
We're talking about players like Shane Warne and Ricky Ponting. I mean, these guys are the definition of greatness in their sport.
And their stats tell a really sobering story about what success at the elite level actually looks like.
Yeah. If you look at the ratio of what you'd call a good game versus bad game, so a game where they hit their optimal benchmark, it's shockingly low.
Let's start with Shane Warne, arguably the greatest bowler to ever play the game.
His ratio was something like 40 to 50% good games versus 50 to 60% bad games.
Just let that sink in for a second. The greatest of all time had more games that did not meet his optimal standard than games that did.
We can get even more specific with the numbers.
Go.
Shane Warne took 3 wickets or more in a test innings only 52% of the time.
52%. That's just barely more than half. So in almost 1 out of every 2 innings he bowled, he didn't hit that mark that most people would consider a good, solid performance.
And then you have Ricky Ponting, the second highest test run scorer ever. A mountain of a player.
A model of consistency, you'd think.
You would. And yet he made 50 runs or more with the bat only 36% of the time.
Wow, 36%. That's an astonishing number. You think of him as a machine, but that's a machine that, by that metric, is failing almost 2/3 of the time.
And this is the point we have to translate for you, the listener. This isn't just about cricket. This is about the reality of what it takes to be excellent in any competitive field.
If these guys, these statistical outliers, the absolute legends, are operating with success rates between 36 and 52%, where does that leave the rest of us?
Yeah, the mere mortals.
The mere mortals operating in our own competitive fields.
The research suggests that for an average high performer in a challenging job, a manager, a specialist, an artist, an excellent result ratio is probably somewhere around 20 to 30% good outcomes.
Versus 70 to 80% bad, or at least non-optimal outcomes.
And that's not a sign that you're bad at your job. It's a reflection of the difficulty of the task, the quality of the competition, and just, statistical variance.
This is a really harsh reality, but we have to internalize it. If you try to ride the waves of that circumstantial confidence, basing your mood and your sense of competence on that 20 or 30% of good results that are going to happen, then your confidence is structurally designed to be high only a third of the time, at best.
And that, to put it simply, is not good at all. It's an unsustainable model for your mental health and for your performance.
It means your default state, your resting state, will be low confidence or at the very least cripplingly volatile.
You just can't afford to have your performance tied to an outcome ratio that is mathematically designed to make you feel insecure 70% of the time.
So we have to make a conscious, a deliberate choice to shift where we get our confidence from. We have to anchor it to the right things.
The things that let us maintain consistency, regardless of whether we succeeded or failed in the last hour.
And this really gets at the heart of it, beyond just sports. If you're a CEO and you launch 10 major initiatives, this data says only 3 or 4 of them are going to work out optimally.
Right. The other 6 or 7 will be statistical failures. They'll be misses.
And if you define your competence by that 30% success rate, you're just constantly beating yourself up over the 70% of necessary high-effort misses. We need a type of confidence that can survive that 70% trough.
Exactly.
So if results are the wrong foundation, if they're too volatile, what are the right foundations?
The research really synthesizes the answer into 2 critical, controllable pillars. 2 things that can give you stable, consistent confidence no matter what the market did yesterday.
And the first pillar is the absolute bedrock of it all. It's preparation.
It's the concrete, verifiable certainty that you have actively ticked every box in the lead up to your performance.
This is the psychological contract you make with yourself. The proof that you have earned the right to go out there and succeed.
And to really bring this idea to life, the sources focused heavily on a case study of Kevin Peterson, or KP.
Yeah, his peers consistently cited him as one of the most self-assured, unflappably confident players they'd ever seen.
And when he was asked where that confidence came from, his explanation was incredibly instructive.
It wasn't just arrogance or some kind of mystique.
No, it was an outcome of pure rigor. KP said his incredible self-belief was generated entirely by his preparation. He said he was at his best when his practice was, in his words, flawless.
And this wasn't just about hitting a lot of balls. It was about the removal of anxiety through deliberate, specific work.
There's a quote from him that just perfectly captures this. He said, "I never substituted anything for hard work. I never went to bed the night before a test match, thinking, oh my goodness, why didn't I practice my sweeps today if I'm going to sweep them tomorrow?"
He mentions playing Harbhajan Singh, a spinner.
Exactly. Or he'd say, how's my pull shot looking? I've got Brett Lee tomorrow at the GABA, and I cannot play the pull shot.
What he's describing there is the preemptive elimination of doubt.
That's it. He wasn't just practicing for volume. He was practicing with specific intention against the known threats he was about to face.
Harbhajan Singh needs the sweep shot. Brett Lee, the fast bowler, you need a solid pull shot.
So by making sure those 2 specific, crucial skills were absolutely perfect the day before, he removed the ability for that what-if doubt to even get into his head.
So confidence, in his view, is the total absence of anxiety about your own readiness.
Exactly.
But let me push back on that a little bit. What about the natural talents? The really gifted people who seem to succeed without this visible level of grinding preparation? Doesn't confidence also come from just knowing you have sheer innate talent?
That's a really important clarification. Innate talent definitely gives you a head start, a baseline advantage.
Sure.
But the sources argue that sustainable confidence, the kind that can survive that 70% failure rate, it has to be built on effort you can point to.
So talent gives you a high ceiling.
But preparation gives you a high floor.
Yeah.
Think about it. When a gifted person hits a slump, what do they have to fall back on? If they only ever relied on their talent, the slump just confirms they haven't put the work in.
Whereas if they relied on preparation.
The slump is just a temporary anomaly. It's a problem they know how to fix because they can go back and refine their process. Preparation gives you a sense of ownership and control over your abilities.
The sources also looked at the flip side of KP's experience. That feeling of carrying doubt into a performance because your preparation was poor.
We've all been there.
Yeah, maybe you didn't hit the ball well in practice, or your run-through of the presentation was just sloppy. It creates that nagging feeling that things aren't right.
And that feeling, that lack of confidence, you carry it with you directly into the pressure moment.
Which brings up this incredibly important psychological point. Your internal truth always matters more than what anyone else says.
Oh, 100%. You could have a coach or a manager standing there shouting, "Great shot," or "That was a perfect pitch," trying to build you up.
But only you know deep down if your execution was really right on. Only you know if you cut corners on the research or if you didn't practice the hard questions.
You cannot lie to yourself about preparation. If you know a specific skill you need is rusty, that internal whisper of doubt, that's the real mind chatter, is going to be louder than any external praise.
That self-assessment of your own readiness, that's the true engine of stable confidence.
But we have to be nuanced here, too. You shouldn't let one bad practice session erase months of work.
Right. We're human. Sometimes you're just slightly off for no reason the day before the big event.
The critical distinction to make is, did I fail today because I was just a bit tired? Or did I fail because I skipped the foundational work last week? If it's the first one, you can mitigate that. You can acknowledge it without catastrophizing.
So, pillar one, preparation, it builds the foundation. It gives you the right to be confident. But what the sources reveal is that preparation by itself is not enough. It doesn't guarantee success when the pressure is on.
And this brings us to the second critical pillar, the one that the research says catches most people out.
And that is focus.
This is the critical gap between what you're capable of and what you produce.
Right.
Preparation builds the confidence you take into the performance.
Right.
But it doesn't automatically guarantee you can maintain that confidence during the performance, at go time, when the pressure really spikes.
And that's the paradox of choking, isn't it? It's the question of why people who have prepared flawlessly, who have ticked every single box like KP, why do they still sometimes seize up when the game is on the line?
They're technically ready. They've done the work. But mentally, they crumble.
So what's happening in the brain at that moment?
It's a cognitive shift. The brain switches from what psychologists call System 1 thinking, which is fast, automatic, fluid execution that's driven by all your preparation, to System 2 thinking, which is slow, analytical, and very conscious. When the pressure hits, the fear of failure triggers that shift. You start overanalyzing the very thing you already know how to do automatically.
And that overanalysis just starves your brain of the resources it needs for smooth execution.
Exactly. So the goal of Pillar 2, of focus, isn't to build more confidence. It's to hold on to the confidence you've already earned through preparation.
It's about preventing the mind from triggering that destructive System 2 override.
The central question of focus then becomes, have you managed to carry that preparation-built confidence into this moment? Or are you starting to doubt yourself and choke now that it's go time?
And that doubt is what triggers the catastrophic shift of attention we talked about earlier.
Instantly, you go from focusing on the process, the specific steps of what you're doing, to focusing on the consequence.
The score, the reaction of the crowd, the potential loss of a contract.
Focus is the mechanism that lets you stay in that state of automatic execution. If you lose your focus, you lose the mechanism, and all that confidence you built in preparation just disintegrates.
Which means we need actionable, real-time strategies. If your mind is inevitably going to try to hijack the process and shift your focus to consequences, what specific tools can you use right in the moment to stop it?
This is where we need to give you mental anchors. When that fear-driven mind chatter starts, that voice saying, "Don't mess this up," you need a pre-programmed System 1 response that immediately redirects your attention.
And these anchors fall into a few categories.
Yeah, the main ones are physical triggers, verbal mantras, and breathing rhythms.
Okay, let's start with physical triggers. They sound immediate, nonverbal. When an elite performer feels that pressure building, what's a subtle physical action they can use to reset their mind?
It has to be subtle but specific.
Yeah.
For a batter, it might be tapping the bat twice on the ground right before the bowler starts their run-up. For a public speaker, it could be a deliberate placement of your hands on the podium.
Or even just adjusting your glasses.
Right. The action itself doesn't mean anything. Its value is in the mental programming you attach to it. You train yourself so that every time you tap the bat, the very next thought is not, what if I get out, but focus on the seam of the ball.
It's a circuit breaker.
It's a circuit breaker. You're manufacturing a moment of reset, pulling yourself out of the imagined future and back into the present action.
So how does that compare to a verbal mantra?
Verbal mantras are powerful because they give your wandering mind a specific, constrained instruction to follow. If your mind starts to spiral, this deal is too important, I can't handle this, a mantra is a focused counter-instruction.
And the key is that the mantra has to be about the process, not the outcome.
Absolutely crucial. A bad mantra would be don't lose or hit the target.
Because those are focused on the consequence.
Exactly. An effective process-focused mantra might be something like smooth delivery, sharp focus. Or for a batter, eyes on the ball, quiet hands.
And for someone in a business meeting?
It could be listen fully, articulate clearly. It's a very short phrase that reminds you of the immediate task required for success. When the mind chatter starts, you literally replace the negative thought with that constructive instruction.
You force your focus back to what you are doing.
Yeah, the mind is a sequential machine. It can't really hold two complex thoughts at once. If you force a positive process-based instruction into the front of the queue, the negative consequence-based thought gets pushed out.
That makes a lot of sense. What about the third anchor, breathing rhythms?
Breathing might be the most fundamental anchor because it directly affects your central nervous system. When you get anxious, your body goes into fight or flight.
Your heart rate goes up, your breathing gets shallow and fast.
And that physiological change just makes the cognitive shift toward panic and consequence focus even worse.
So deep rhythmic breathing isn't just a cliche for calming down, it's a physical intervention, a way to restore that System 1 automatic thinking.
Absolutely. High performers often use a specific ratio. For example, the 4-7-8 technique. You inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, and then exhale for 8.
And that long exhale is the key.
That's the key. It deliberately activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which sends a signal to your brain that the danger is over, that your body is safe. When your body calms down, the emotional centers of your brain quiet down, and your executive function, your ability to focus on the task returns.
And you can use this in the natural pauses of a performance.
Right, walking back to your mark between points, or just taking a breath before you answer a question in a high-stakes interview. It is the tactical, real-time maintenance of the confidence you built through preparation.
So it's that moment of execution that really separates the consistently successful from those who are trapped by their results. If preparation is the homework you do, then focus deployed through these mental anchors is the test-taking skill that ensures your knowledge isn't paralyzed by fear.
That's a great way to put it. You might know all the answers, but if your focus is hijacked by anxiety about the consequences, you won't be able to write them down correctly.
And this whole strategy, these two pillars, it allows you to be at your best as consistently as possible because you're no longer waiting for a good result to feel capable.
You feel capable because of the work you did. That's pillar 1. And the precise tactical attention you are dedicating to the present moment. That's pillar 2. You become confident in your process no matter what the random outcome is.
So we have covered a lot of ground today. Let's try to synthesize the key takeaways for you. First, confidence is absolutely integral to your best performance. But the circumstantial confidence you get from results is, well, fundamentally toxic and unsustainable.
That's right. Because the statistical reality of any high-level performance is that outcomes will always ebb and flow. You're going to be in a state of statistical failure 70 to 80% of the time.
You have to decouple your sense of self-worth from that volatile reality.
You must.
Instead, you have to anchor your confidence to the two things you can actually control. Pillar 1 is preparation.
Did you tick every box? Did you do the hard, deliberate work required to eliminate any anxiety about your readiness? That's what gives you the legitimate right to be confident.
And pillar 2 is focus. Once you have that earned confidence, you need a pre-programmed tactical strategy to hold on to it when the pressure peaks.
You have to commit to focusing only on what you're doing right now. using those physical triggers, verbal mantras, or breathing techniques to block out that catastrophic shift towards thinking about failure.
The sources through these insights are offering more than just a philosophical shift. It's like a mechanical repair kit for performance anxiety. By shifting your identity from "I'm only as good as my last result"
Yeah.
to "I am as good as my last preparation and my current focus," you achieve a kind of unshakable performance stability.
And that is the essence of escaping the performance trap.
Yeah.
You gain the courage to take on that 70% chance of failure because you know your preparation was flawless.
And you have the mental tools to guarantee your attention stays locked on the present, process-oriented moment.
Exactly.
So here's the final challenge for you to consider as you move forward, applying these techniques to your own high-stakes environment. We've established that preparation builds your confidence, but it does not guarantee you'll maintain it when the pressure hits. Your mind will inevitably try to shift your focus from "what I am doing" to "what will happen if I fail."
That internal battle is always the differentiator. It's what separates the great performers from the ones who are merely well prepared.
So the provocative thought is this. We've talked about physical triggers, verbal mantras, and breathing rhythms as tools. Now, I want you to define one of each for the single most high-stakes performance you are facing this week.
Get specific.
Get very specific. What is the single 3-word mantra that will immediately redirect you to the process? What is the one subtle physical action that will snap your attention back? And how will you practice that intervention, that act of tactical refocus this week, so that when that 70% failure rate tries to drag you down, you don't just survive the pressure, you use it as a cue to execute flawlessly?
Think about the engineering required to hold on to that confidence when the outcome is least guaranteed.